Okay, Terminator from ugx-mods with another basic mapping tutorial. This one is going to cover zones, and tons of people have been asking me for a zone tutorial. Apparently they're a big problem for a lot of people, but good news for you, zones are my bitch. So we'll get through this pretty easily, and hopefully by the end of this you'll have a good understanding of zones and you won't be so afraid of them anymore, because there's really nothing to be afraid of once you know what you're doing. So first of all, I'm just going to make a copy of this building so that I have more rooms to zone and therefore have a better explanation for you. Okay, let's get the floor and the walls. Okay, get that. Okay, I'm gonna hit space and then R to go into rotate mode, escape to exit rotate mode. This has got to be the dumbest house design I've ever seen. Okay, let's drag those together and then delete one of the walls and that. Okay, so now we've got a super long house shaped like a dog bone. So, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and make a quick. Now, fuck the door. We don't need a door. I'll just. This is even faster. Delete. Copy. Paste. Don't ever make a map like this. Please. And if you do, don't bother releasing it. Okay. So we've got our dog bone house. I'm gonna go ahead and hide these. What the shit? I think I just accidentally turned off wireframe view. I don't know where to change that. Shit. It's one of the keys, but I don't remember. It's not E, it's not W, not R, not F. What the hell did I... Not X, not C, not Z. This piece of shit. Alright, fine, we don't have wireframe view anymore. I don't even remember where I was, but anyway. So now I have all these rooms. So basically, I'm going to give a quick explanation of zones. When you have a big map, you're generally going to have areas, you're going to have separate sections. Like, I'm going to use a map that I'm sure most all of you have played just as an example, for explanation's sake. Nazi Zombie 420. Nazi Zombie 420 obviously has many different rooms, and if you'll remember, it has there's that mission control room where the random box is, and there's that, and then there's the basement area, and then there's the area adjacent to the control room, which is the teleporter room. And if you've never played the map, it doesn't even matter. Basically, I'm talking about two rooms right next to each other with a basement under them. So if you're in the control room or the room above the basement, you're not going to want zombies spawning in the basement instead of spawning right next to the player in the room they're in. So the solution to that is to use zones, and what zones are is there are triggers just like the playable area that tell the game where the players are at any given moment. And it knows, sorry about the yawning, it knows where to spawn zombies based on where the players are. So if my players walk from this room to this room. They're going to change zones, and instead of spawning here, the zombies would spawn here and be closer. If there was a window here, they'd be closer to the players. So it's like constant action. So the players are never sitting there waiting for more zombies to show up because they're spawning 10 miles away. So let's go ahead and make a zone here. So to make a zone, drag a brush. What the fuck? Oh, it made it the size of the floor. Drag it up to the size of the room, roughly. Doesn't have to be exact. Right click it. Jesus Christ. Right click it and go to trigger multiple. And then hit N. And you're going to want to give it a target name, and then you're going to want to give it a name. I'm going to give this the name of living room. Okay. And then you're going to want to give it a target of living room spawners. Okay. And then I'm going to make another zone right next to it in the other room. Okay, and it's the same size. And then I'm going to make a trigger multiple. Oh shit, not a trigger look at. Come on, trigger multiple. Fuck. Delete it. Make it again. Okay. Make a trigger multiple this time. Let's give this a target name of start zone spawners. Actually, spawn area spawners. And then target name spawn area. Okay. So now we have two zones. We have one for this room and one for this room, right? So now let's go ahead and link the zombies that we want to be in control of those zones. So let's go ahead and select the zone first, then select the spawner and press W. It's important that you select the trigger first and then the spawner. And what that does is you'll see this yellow line is now going from the center of the zone to the zombie. What that did was it gave him the target name of spawn area spawners. You could have done this manually. And that tells the game that this zombie is linked to the spawn area zone. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and make a dude on the other side. You know, whatever. So now we have two zombies on that zone. Now I want some zombies to spawn over here too for the other zone. So I'm going to put a zombie over there and a zombie over there. And just to give an example of not having to use W to link the zombies, I'm going to change the target name to living room spawners. Okay, notice the line is now going into the living room zone. I'm going to do the same to the guy over here. Make it so he's not staring at the wall like a fucking retard. Alright. So now, when the players are within this trigger right here, this is bad, don't have gaps between your zones. If the player is in this trigger, these zombies are going to spawn. And if the player is in this trigger, these zombies are going to spawn. And if there's players in both triggers, then both zombies will be spawning. So they're always going to get hit hard by zombies. There's never going to be a dull moment, in other words. So I know you're hoping that's all you have to do, but it's not all you have to do. What you have to do is go into your Call of Duty root folder, and you have to go into raw maps. And then you have to find your map name. In this case, I'm using Nazi Zombie Terminator. So I'm going to open Nazi Zombie Terminator.gsc. Okay. Now I'm going to scroll down to here. DLC3 Zone Initiate, which stands for initialize. So right here, you'll already see there's crap filled in. We don't want to use that crap because it doesn't match what we made, and these dumbasses didn't even match it to what they wrote up here. So first thing you have to do is find this. Find this line right here. Zones. Zone.size equals start zone. This is the first zone of your map. In our case, we named it spawn area because that's the zone within which the players spawn. So spawn area is our first zone. So down here, our first adjacent zone should also be spawn area. And the way these work, if you refer here, it's zone 1, zone 2, flag, one way. Those are the possible arguments for this function. And the first 3 are mandatory and the 4th one is optional, meaning you have to have these 3 but you don't have to fill in this one. So our first zone 1 in this case is spawn area. Zone 2 is any zone that is adjacent to spawn area. You could have 10 zones that are accessible. Maybe your players spawn in a room with 10 doors, and within each door is another, or on the other side of each door is a separate room, and you have 10 different zones for your 10 different rooms. You're going to have 10 lines with each of those zones as your zone 2. And I'll try to explain that as visually as I can. But to make this even simpler, let me go ahead and just do that. Fuck making more of a house. Let's just make another zone over here. We have a zone here, a zone here, and zones over here. We got zones up the yin-yang. So make them all trigger multiples. Don't select more than one trigger and make them both multiples, or they'll be the same entity, and that will cause a buttload of problems. Okay. So now we have 4 trigger multiples. I'm going to give this one shit, it doesn't matter. Just give it a name. Oh, here we go. How about this? Which one of these is which? This is living room. So let's make this living room. This will make it even more clear. Left. Living room. Right. Spawn area left, spawn area right. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zones, all branching off of these 2 middle zones. So here's what we do. So we have our spawn area right, and there's 2 zones next to that. There's spawn area left and spawn area right. Those are both next to spawn area. So we're gonna put spawn area left. And I'm not gonna fill this in yet. I'll explain that in a minute. And then we're gonna make a duplicate of that line and put in spawn area right. Whoops. So now we have both of the zones that branch from spawn area. Okay, so that's how you set that up. And then we had the other zone you can get to from spawn area is the living room. So that's what I named it, right? Just living room, or did I call it living room zone? Living room, okay. So spawn area living room is possible. You do not have to put living room to spawn area. You only put zones that have to be that aren't are when you go from one zone to another. All zones except for your start zone start as locked. So all the zones that you create on your map when the game starts are going to be deactivated, and no zombies will be getting into them, and no players should be able to get into them either. The game is not monitoring those zones. They are deactivated. The only zone activated is your spawn zone, right? Your initial area. And then when you buy a door or whatever to open a new zone, that door is going to have a KVP on it that's called script flag, I believe is the one you use. That would say, for example, enter spawn area left. And that would be on a door that goes from the spawn area to the spawn area left. So spawn area left starts off, and then when a player goes and they open the door with this flag on it, and now they can access the spawn area left area, that zone will then be turned on. That there's no door to get back into spawn area that needs a zone flag because the spawn area has already been activated. So you don't need to have, for example, you don't need to have a situation like this where you have both ways covered. You do not need to do that. Don't do that. So now that that's explained, we can go from spawn area to living room, and then now we're in the living room, so let's go from living room to living room left and living room right. Okay? So now I'm going to go through these. I'm going to go ahead and these are your flags. Flag to be set to initiate zones. What that means is, let's see, do I have a door between these? No, I don't. Alright. Let's just make a door here. Okay. So here's our door. And let's give it a trigger. Let's make it a script brush model. I'm going to do this right just so I don't give a bad example. Give it a trigger on the side that can be opened, which is this side. This is the start zone side, so this is the side they're going to open it from. Make a little trigger. Okay, right click, trigger, use. Select the door, then the trigger, hit W. Shit, no, it's the other way around. Select the trigger, then the door, hit W. Then select the trigger, target name, zombie, debris. Okay. So now we have a really basic door. We're going to go script flag, enter living room. Okay? And then in our map script, spawn area that opens living room, flag, enter living room. So when this flag is quote unquote set, the living room zone is going to be activated, and in turn any zones connected to the living room through these will be available to open now. So living room left is now waiting to be opened, and living room right is now waiting to be opened, and living room is already opened. So what I mean by setting a flag is when this door is opened by the player, the game's going to go, oh, you have a script flag on this door, so let's go ahead and set that flag. What's the flag name? Enter living room. Okay, set the enter living room flag. And then this script's going to go, oh, enter living room was just set, so that means the zone is open, so now let's get ready to open these zones. So it's just going to go through the hierarchy that you have set up here. That was probably the worst explanation I could have given, but it's not that easy to explain. I mean, living room to living room left, you could go enter living room left, and then you'd have a door from living room to living room left. Same thing with right, and then spawn area right would be enter spawn area right. So now your zones are set up, providing you were able to wrap your head around what I just said and it all made sense. If you have multiple zones that you want to activate by the same flag, like it could get a little confusing at this point, and I don't want to see the map that's laid out like this because it'd be atrocious. But let's say living room and spawn area. Let's say for some dumb reason you have two zones in your spawn area. Let's say you have two zones in to make up a room next to your spawn area, and they are spawn area left and spawn area right. One door is going to open both of these zones. So how do you handle that? You make one door and give it the script flag of enter spawn rooms. And then when that flag is set, it's going to open spawn area left, but you can also give that flag here, and so when that flag is set, it's going to activate both of these lines. It's going to open spawn area left and spawn area right from the same flag. So you can do that to as many zones as you want with the same flag. That's really dirty, and I don't suggest you ever do that, but if you're in a situation where your map is laid out like that, be my guest and go ahead and do it. It'll work fine. So that was my attempt at explaining zones. Hopefully I explained it well enough that you understand. If not, feel free, let me know, and I'll maybe write something out instead of doing improv explanations, and see what the best way I can explain it would be. Write it down on paper and read it off to you. But for now, that's all I got. So stay tuned for a risers tutorial and a tutorial on teleporters. Thanks, guys.